Gentlemen, could you please take a seat? Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Harrison Township Planning Commission meeting. Today is Thursday, December 19th, 2013. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:03. Mr. Secretary, may I have roll call, please?
Sure, thank you. Member McDougal, I understand is excused.
Yes.
Member Tominello,
Here.
Member Falk,
Here.
Member Batcha,
Here.
Member Bloom is present, Member Olgiati,
Present.
and Chairperson Murray.
Present. Thank you. May I have approval of the agenda as presented, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Support.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have in front of us our meeting minutes from November 21st. May I have a motion to approve those minutes, please, or please let us know changes?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the meeting of November 21st, 2013 as written.
I'll support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Mr. Secretary, would you please read our first case?
Yes, Madam Chair, with respect to case number 1713 PUD, I believe that there may be, if not a conflict of interest, a perceived conflict of interest with my involvement in it for a matter that I'm involved in with my business.
Okay.
And I, at this point, would ask to recuse myself from this case.
Okay, Mr. Bloom, you are recused from this case. You may sit in the gallery or...
I think you might need to take a vote on
You
that.
just have to
Take a vote, okay. So we'll take that as the form of a motion, and I will second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. You may sit in the gallery or leave the room, whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay, I'll
And then
sit.
please come join us when this is complete. if you
I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Case number 17-13, PUD, Hawks Landing, Old Blue Water Marine, South River Road between Macomber and Detroit, in Harrison Township Waterfront District. Preliminary review of the proposed 10-unit condominium development. Is the applicant present? Please come up and give us your name, please. Come up to the microphone.
Frank PQ.
Thank
Can
you
I
for joining
ask
us.
if the commissioners had received a copy of my history prior to this meeting? Okay. Do you want me to proceed to start with?
Yes, please do.
Okay. The reason I sent it up as history is because we have developed projects in very hard areas to produce a development. And with the cooperation of the city and the township, we made these projects work successfully. And I look forward to the fact that we did something that was benefit to the community. In Harrison Township, 30-some years ago, don't remember the exact date, I purchased a little marina on the curve of Jefferson, or South River Road, which is now built up as Riverview Club. Hope you all are aware of that one. It's three-story homes, townhomes, or condos. The middle building has an elevator. The two other buildings have stairwells, but they're all connected with a little bridge. And so the whole complex can have the benefit of using the elevator if they need to. And the attractiveness of that development was the fact that each of the residents also had a boat slip. And that went off fairly successful, even though the year that we started to build it, the river was up to the top of the seawall. And when people came out into the parking lot, they walked into a foot of water. It was like trying to sell Eskimos refrigerators. And, but fortunately, people want to live on the Clinton River. While some owners were sandbanking their seawalls, there was people knocking on the door wanting to know if they could buy their house. So over the years that I've been involved in small developments, I've looked at properties that were what I would call blighted. In St. Clair Shores, we did a nice little development that was before a trailer camp. We wouldn't even call it a mobile home park, it was trailers. And one of the neighbors, is a good friend of mine, tried to get rid of that trailer park for 20-some years. And it had all kind of violations and problems. I finally convinced the owner that what I proposed was going to be better than what he had. And we built it successfully. Then we found a property over on Masonic off of Jefferson. That was a school board, and we took over that property, which is a baseball diamond. St. Clair Shores wanted a new library. They needed enough money, so they sold us the baseball diamonds, which was not being used, and we built 40 quads, fourplexes. The mistake we made was the first ones we built were with one-car garages. Many people said, we'd buy one, but we need a two-car garage. So fortunately, we were able to convert the last group of units to two-car garages. They sold out immediately. We did some other projects, and in Harrison Township, we took another mobile home park that was blighted. In fact, when we excavated it, they found out that none of the homes were connected to the septic tank. They were really pouring raw sewage out into the lake. So we were glad to be able to correct that problem. And we built those 18 units. Fortunately, the township was very receptive to us developing that property. We needed some variances, and we were given the variances. I'd also like to introduce the architect on these projects, which is Mr. Dan Tosh. He's here.
Okay.
And he's been with me over the years. We're members at Bayview Yacht Club. We're sailors, and we're water-oriented. And I always looked at these different places and said, what could I do to improve the quality of life for the people who live here and also benefit the community? This property that we're talking about now, Hawks Landing, it's the name I gave it. I've owned it multiple times. Sold it, got it back, sold it, got it back. The present owners said, we'd like to give it back to you at a fairly modest price. And I said, I don't want to own it and run it again. I've done that. But I looked at it and said, this is an opportunity to improve on a piece of property that has no place to go. It is not economically viable. It produces not enough income to improve it or maintain it, unfortunately. So I went to the township supervisor and I said, I got a little idea. Let me show you some drawings of what I think could be done to this property. And Mr. Verkest said, that's the best idea I've seen yet. He says, we just spent all that money for that walkway and bicycle path across the ways, and it sure isn't anything nice to look at what's there now. It isn't going to get any better. This is an opportunity to improve on this piece of property, and it's not going to be easy. We both knew that because there was the road commission right-of-ways. So we immediately said, before we go further and bring this project to the planning commission, let's find out if it's even doable. If we can't overcome the road commission, there's no point in going any further. So we, of course, had the property surveyed. I have an option on the property, signed purchase agreement. The owner of the property is here, can attest to that. We went to the road commission after presenting a plan. The road commission said, no way, Jose. You're making another road inside on our easement. You can't do that. I came back and was very disappointed. Ken Verkest said, there's got to be another way to do this. Let's go back and talk to them. So we had a meeting, and the head gentleman, Robert Hoffner, said, come back and talk to our engineers. Let's see what we can work out. And he said, we can allow you to have 3 entries into that property. Their engineer designed it. We didn't know how that would work. He designed it, so their main thing is they want safety. They don't want people backing out onto South River Road. So it's designed so that there's turnarounds. The curbs are high enough, nobody's gonna drive over a 6-inch curb. They're gonna have to back out inside the property and then drive out. And then there's, of course, I call it a passing lane on the other side of the road that we'd have to install. So the drawings that you have presented to you are ones that have been designed basically by the engineer from the Road Commission as far as the curb cuts and the right-of-ways and so forth. And they've gotten a copy of it and said, this will work. So we have nothing in writing because we can't present them something in writing until we get through with the Planning Commission. But if we got a verbal okay, we're gonna approve what you've done because we drew it up. So the next thing was to bring this to the Planning Commission. And I met one evening with Mr. Tominello and said, here's a project that I'd like to present to the Planning Commission. And he said, well, you know, you need to have a public benefit. I says, what do you mean a public benefit? I says, building 10 nice townhomes and creating tax base for the township and be able to clean up property that's not been improved over the years. And at the very east end of the property is a wooded area that's been used. Nobody's been maintaining it, doing anything. People who dump things in it. He says, that's a public benefit. He says, oh, no, 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 no. That's not a public benefit. That benefits you, and it benefits the people who buy the homes. But you don't have a public benefit. So I went back to your supervisor, and he says, what could I do that would be a public benefit? We put our heads together, and Ken is a very, very astute gentleman. I think the township is very pleased to have someone as smart as he is. That's my opinion. Anyway, he said, you know, we have that walking path we put in across the road, but he says we have nothing on the Clinton River for people to sit down and view the boats going by. He said, is there any way you can make a little park with a bench people could sit on? I said, well, yes, there are 4 lots at the very end of this property going east towards the lake. 2 of them are, and we've been paying taxes on those 4 lots all these years by whoever owned the property. Those lots, 2 of them are completely underwater. So you can't fill them in because there's river between the lots and the existing road. But there's 2 lots that have partial property on the site. I also discussed this with the Road Commission. I said, if we were going to do something with that property down there, would you have any objections? They said, well, you can't remove the berm. The berm that's there is a safety factor. So if anybody were to drive off of the road, they wouldn't be able to go right into the river. There's a berm there. But you can landscape it. You can't park in it. You can't make a driving out of it, but you can landscape it. So this is what I'm proposing to present here to you as a group. We, the owners of the property, would deed to Harrison Township those 4 last lots that's far east towards the lake. And we would clean it up, basically, as our drawings show you that we have put penciled in, where we would clean it up, landscape it, put a bench there, make it accessible, which is what you are doing on Metro Beach Parkway. There's people who have now places where they could sit, but they can't sit and look at boats on Metro Beach Parkway. But I think this would be an ideal public benefit that would benefit all the public, not just me or not the owners of the homes. There is, not everything conforms, but this is a very, very small piece of property. And I can't think of anything that we could do to improve more on what we have right now being offered to the Planning Commission. And the reason I wanted to bring it here as a preliminary review is I want to get a positive reaction that I'm going in the right direction. If not, there's no point in me continuing and spending more money. We know we're going to probably have to put pilings in to support the foundations. These are not big, tall homes. They're not 3 stories. They're only 2 stories. And the main thing is safety. I think these homes would be ideal for single ladies, single men, or couples. Safety is that they drive right into their garage, close the garage door, get out of their car, go up into their living area without being outside. So this was designed that way because I think that this market is going to be for men or ladies who want to live on the water. And the other encouragement is everyone will get a boat well with their townhome. That's our plan. My customer base is the 200 to 300 boaters that go to the end of the launching ramp every Saturday and Sunday and even during the week and launch their boats. I think some of those, there's probably 200 or 300 of them over the year, over the week time. I only need 10 of them. I know right now at least 2 people who would buy one of these homes as long as they are marketable. They're not big. They're only a 1-bedroom home. They're very small, but they're livable. It may be even somebody who lives on the west side of Detroit like I do. It takes me 40 minutes in good times to get to my boat, which is on the Clinton River. Today it took me an hour and a half to get across town. I do it 3 or 4 times a week because I do a lot of fishing from the Clinton River. But we have a gem with the Clinton River. It's a boating community. People love to live on the water. There's nothing available like this to be offered to them at present time. I don't see where there's going to be anything more of this type of nature that could be done. There's not land available to do something like this. So I think it's an opportunity for the township to have a piece of property improved and also have a piece of property that will bring a tax base to the community and be able to clean it up and make it something that's an advantage. And that's what I proposed. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Do you have anything on your board there that's different from the plans that we have received?
Yes.
Would you like to show those to us?
This is an aerial view.
The site that we're looking at is basically between Detroit Avenue on the west and Macomber, where the condominium development.
Right.
This stays.
And the remainder is property.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
this is a public hearing and, or it's not a public
It's not a
hearing, but
public
it
hearing.
is a public meeting. We should
So-
have the applicants at the.
Right, I
mic.
need to have you at the podium. Actually, and I need the applicant to be explaining this. Is this something that you can do from the podium?
Not really, I mean, it's just.
I mean, this
want
is
to
just
see
a
it.
a cleaner copy of what we already have?
For the record, my name is Dan Tosh with the Progressive Associates Architects. The entire property that Mr. Piku explained is basically between lots 30, 25, and 31 is where the proposed condominium development is going to go. And that's basically between Detroit Avenue and Macomber.
Correct.
The remainder of the property from lot 31 to approximately lot 38 is where the proposed boat wells will remain. The area that Mr. Piku indicated would be for park and recreation area is in this particular zone at the far eastern end of the property. This gives you an overall, what you have in front of you is just the condominium portion of it. But this is the overall piece of property which goes from lot 25 to about lot 39. And the remaining 2 lots, 40 and 41 are in the water, basically based on the legal description. So this gives you an overview of the entire development. And also what we have here is a graphic, just a little blown-up area is the area where the condominium development's going, and a pictorial view of the elevation that you see
Okay,
from South
that's
River Road.
similar to, that is what we
Right,
have.
it's basically
Yeah.
that, but with color on
Yeah,
it.
okay.
It's identical to what we have in front of you. But I
Okay.
can come up and show that to you. See that a little bit easier.
Yeah, that's what we have.
Color version of what you have.
Okay, thank you. Well, if there's nothing else any more information that you can share with us, then I'm gonna open it up to the board for questions. Okay? All right. Gentlemen?
Sure, I have a question. So when I'm looking at, I guess my question is, when I look at the first 5 units, those are the western units, I count 14 wells in front, behind those units. The 4 to the east, I count 13 wells behind those units. I guess my question is, are you going to reduce those and offer 1 or 2 wells per unit? And if not, how are you gonna handle that? Because they could be rented out, they could be guest wells. How would you control that?
They could be rented out, absolutely. I would deed 10 slips to the 10 homes. The other slips that are left over are still retained in my name.
Okay, so then I guess if they're left over, my question would be, where are you gonna have the parking for those guest wells?
The parking that's available on site right now has been adequate for over the last 40 years.
But that's gonna be off-site parking.
If
It'd be
that's
considered off-site parking.
right,
Because they're not in
right.
front of the units. Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Well, Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
maybe just procedurally, so for the applicant's benefit as well as any of the public listening in, just to briefly go through the process that a PUD or a planned unit development involves. And, basically, a planned unit development is a unique development that typically would be provided on a challenging piece of property. And, with the width of this property, or depth of the property, excuse me, it does make it a challenging piece of property to develop. And also because of its natural assets and so forth, it probably is something, that would welcome a PUD of some type. And that's not to insinuate that this is the development necessarily. But with regard to the process that's followed with a PUD, step number 1 involves the applicant coming in, sharing his idea with the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission then interacting with the applicant, sharing concerns, ideas, and hopefully some type of dialogue exchange. And then typically, the Planning Commission will make a decision that either the project has merit to proceed to the final stage of a PUD, where we would get into the real details of it, or that it's simply not workable in the Planning Commission's eyes, and a motion for denial would be made at that point in time, and that would end the PUD process. So that is the process, and so tonight's meeting is to discuss the merits of this project.
Correct.
And I think more or less tonight is the concerns with the project, to give the applicant kind of a heads up as to what you're gonna be looking for, and perhaps after that, if in fact there's a lot of concerns brought up, you may want to table this tonight, have the applicant address some of those concerns or attempt to address those concerns, and come back to the meeting next month, hopefully with all those concerns taken care of.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Maher. Well, as Mr. Maher said, it is up to us to determine if this is has potential merit for this piece of property. We have been supplied with a letter from CPM indicating 8 items and a recommendation. Have you received a copy of this letter,
No, ma'am.
Sabrina? This is a letter from, I put it in the mail. This is a letter from indicating that you're proposing a 10-unit condo development for a planned unit development, and indicates the 2-step process, that we're in the preliminary portion of the application, and that existing topography shall be included, all existing utilities shall be located and noted. This indicates the 8 items that are required. Thanks, Patrick. Just take a quick look at that. please. And for the public, I'll just continue. A full legal description, including parcel size, must be submitted. The maximum density permitted within a residential PUD shall not exceed 4.5 dwellings per acre, 4.5 dwelling units per acre. Planned unit development is supposed to provide a benefit to the community. It may be that the development includes parks or walkways and some type of public amenities. And the commission may ask applicant to consider improvements along the river to the east of the project, and we've discussed that. A minimum of 20 feet is required for two-way maneuvering. The lane provided is only 17 feet, much of which is the proposed county right-of-way. We have concerns with regard to lack of parking for visitors. Because the maneuvering lane is right up to the road, this leaves little area for a landscaping buffer along South River Road. And then the planner's recommendation, the commission at this point shall only determine if the concept has merit and share concerns. The applicant must decide if they can address these concerns and proceed to final. We've also received a letter from the fire chief, Mr. Lopez, indicating that the fire department has no objections regarding the preliminary site plan submitted. We've also received a copy of the letter from the Department of Roads indicating that they have completed their preliminary review of the mentioned site. At this time, the proposed location of all drive, approaches, and all corresponding geometrics are acceptable to the Macomb County Department of Roads. And that's from a Mr. George Malistas, permits and local road engineer. So, back to the commissioners. Concerns or questions?
So I have a question about the park itself. Is that going to be deeded to the township of Harrison, or is that going to be maintained through the condominium association, and how exactly is that going to be for the public?
We would deed the lots to the township,
Will be deeded. So
those
who
last
would-
4 lots.
Okay, so who would maintain those lots?
The township.
The township would maintain those lots.
Yeah. We would make them usable as a park. Clean it up, landscape it, put a sitting bench so that it's usable. From there on, it's township property. And
So
they would be,
there's enough parking down, because you said 2 of them are underwater, there'd be enough area for parking for the general public to be able to utilize?
there'd be no parking.
Okay, so,
No, because again, the road commission, most of that property is the road commission property. Although we do have land between the road commission property and the water.
So,
And-
and if I could comment on that, Mr. PQ, I would like to share my thoughts on that. As far as a public benefit, I guess I would consider that not qualifying. When you deed 4 lots over to the township, we lose tax revenue, number 1. Number 2, we would have to construct and build a park and maintain it. So to me, we're actually losing money. It's really not a benefit to the township, and we're losing revenue. So my opinion is that's really not a public benefit, and that's just my opinion.
And just for clarification, it was mentioned previously that lots 25 through 31 would be used for the 10 units, and then lots 32 through 38 were gonna be used for the public benefit?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Lots 38, 39, 40, and 41 are the ones that would be deeded back to the township. And when you mentioned the tax base, those lots have practically 0 value, so there really isn't much taxes that you can be charged against them when they're not usable. There's no value to them. The value would be as a park.
So on the information that we have before us, we have lots 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30, and part of 31 that are indicated for the condo units.
yes, ma'am.
So, and you're saying 38 through 41 would be the public benefit. So what about lots 32 through 37?
They would be retained just as they are presently in control slips.
And those boat slips are for the residents of the potential units
No,
or
ma'am.
for
No, ma'am.
totally open?
They will be rented just as they have been
Okay.
in prior years.
Okay, thank you.
You know, I think, Madam Chair, just for, to include it in the record, if that's the case, it really ought to be shown on the site plan, and that particular use needs to be represented as part of this PUD application.
I agree.
So, yeah, that is definitely something that would impact the review of the site and, you know, its significance with regard to meeting the ordinance requirements.
I don't think we have everything we need before us to determine, in my opinion, I don't think we have enough before us to determine if this project has merit or potential. There's too many pieces that are missing from the preliminary site plan. Comments from the rest of the commissioners?
Well, I'll comment. I was gonna make the same comment myself,
Thank you.
that, the applicant, though may have only received the letter from CPM today, there's, 8 items on the letter, of which some are just procedural relative to requirements for us even to determine if it has merit, which in myself was the first items that I felt, until that was provided, we're not even in that position to determine if merit is
Correct.
even available. So likewise, I'm gonna concur with your observations. Secondly, to Mr. Tominello's point, item 5 on here, which does speak to the benefit to community. I had not yet made the determination if the park was a benefit or not, but I was still struggling with it, and Mr. Tominello's points were, certainly opened up the door for further discussion, because I had not concluded that was a benefit. But nonetheless, I think the letter stands pretty, it's a pretty thorough assessment on what needs to be addressed. I do believe that once we have a full understanding of the full site, as referenced here in item 3, a full legal description, including parcel size, which must be submitted, that may very well determine the density requirements that you reference on here, Pat, which right now we can't even determine what it is.
Correct.
So it certainly is the information for the applicant to assess, to see, given these constraints that you've defined in your letter, if once the applicant can go back and reconsider what these are, that they can still come back with a application that tends to respond to these requirements, then I believe this board is in that position now to determine if there's merit to go to step 2 of the process.
Correct. I agree. Anything else we want to share with the applicant?
Mr. Maher, in this section here, what is the right-of-way from the center of the road, how far towards the river?
Well, I think the existing right-of-way is, and I'd have to verify it with the road commission, but my guess is it's 33 feet, or I'm sorry, 66 feet total, 33-foot half right-of-way there. But, let me just scale it real quick just to get a rough. Yeah, it appears to be about a 66-foot right-of-way at this location. Now, the master plan designates this particular area for a collector road, which would be an 86-foot eventual right-of-way, or a 43-foot half right-of-way. And, what's being indicated on the plan is the existing right-of-way, which you'll notice really goes up to the property line. Which if you, it's kind of the dashed lines as you're looking at it.
At the back, at the riverside.
Yeah, it's dashed on both sides. You'll notice the dashed lines that are about 3 foot from the front of the face of the building. That is the front property line.
And that extends into the water in some places.
The rear property line extends into the water in some places, yes.
Okay, and my point there being that any of the lots 38 through 41, which seem to narrow, a good portion of those would be in right of way anyway.
I would assume just like the ones, you know, that we're seeing, you know, a bit of it is in the right of way, yeah. And without seeing those and having, you know, the survey on the drawing, I can't really comment on.
And then, so then if I'm looking at the plan the right way, I'm seeing that condo number 10 is actually hanging out over into the river? Yes? I see issues where I don't know if I could get my truck into any one of these garages if there was another vehicle in the garage. So I don't know if I couldn't get it into the garage, if my other vehicle was in there, where I would park it. So parking is always a problem, and we have had developments that didn't make it through because of parking. Parking here to me is a big issue. I'm telling you what my concerns would be in case you want to address that. Parking here is just, it's not gonna cut it. If you have 10 units, it would be not uncommon for the holiday season for, you know, a third of the units to have company over, and I look at this and ask, where would they park? And I don't see that. I don't see how I could get in and out of the garage. The access being that close to the road, the curb being right at the edge of the road, and that section is, to me, seems a little bit on the hazardous side. The units hanging out over the river, although that might look kind of neat and everything, I see that as being an extreme safety hazard. And I don't know what the back end would be like of deck-wise or anything like that. I'm sure it would be so that nobody would fall, but there is, to me, a big potential there. I don't see that I see that any park land would be at a minimal, and accessing the park would not be an easy thing unless you were going down the bike trail. So it's by foot or by bicycle or something like that. And when I look through section 13.01 of the plan unit requirements, I have more X's or no's on there as compared to items that I can tend to agree with. Just out of the first 8 items there, I see half of them okay and half of them not okay, in my opinion. And I don't see in a lot of planned unit developments, it's not just for the housing and taking advantage of the space that it's available, but additional either shops or retails or the parkland and all that, and that's not really in here in my opinion. So the big things are, and I will call Chief Lopez and talk to him about what my concerns from a firefighting standpoint are. You're basically fighting this fire just from one side.
From the road.
And yeah, and you can't access the complexes unless you're gonna be 30 feet away from them. And there's nothing, you know, there's no way of getting to the back unless they get the boat back there. And it's a long, from this point to the lake has gotta be, I'm thinking a 30, 45 minute
Oh, yeah.
cruise to get there. So accessing a fire from the back is almost impossible. So that's concerning to me, and I will call Chief Lopez on that and you know, get his opinion and everything. But the other items, especially the parking, the distance of getting in and out of the garage, I can't see. If you can, that's one major sticking point to me, along with the items listed in our zoning book on the plan unit development, I see, you know, at least a quarter of the items to be, issues that I'm not really feeling comfortable with right now.
So you mentioned the getting in and out of the garages.
Yes,
This was designed by George Melissus from the Road Commission using templates that shows how much room is necessary for you to make a turnaround and get in and out, so forth. And there are areas where they have turnarounds, which is shown on the drawing that are doing. So the engineer from the Road Commission literally designed that with their templates, what would make it work. So I didn't design it, neither did my architect. The Road Commission engineer designed that, and then when we put it to the drawings, then he said, we would approve this. So I hear what you're saying, but we're only looking at what the engineer from the Road Commission proposed that they would accept and was within templates. I saw him use the templates. This is what he could use. It may be narrow, but it's doable. And that's why we're here as a PUD request, because this is a tight piece of property.
right.
And if we are ever going to see any improvement on it, we are looking to have, I won't call them variances, but acceptance of what we have to offer. We can only offer what we have. We can't offer something we don't have. When you mention the off-street parking, there's approximately 40 parking spaces adjacent to from the end of the first home, or the last home, I should say, to the east end of the property that we would give to the township.
Are you talking on the water side?
The water side, yes. There's approximately 40 parking spaces there. Of all the 40 years that I've been involved with this property, I've never, ever seen all 40 spaces full. Even on the best day, 4th of July, maybe half of the people come and use their boats, the other half, they don't, everybody uses boats. So what I'm saying is the credit for parking would be that area.
Yeah, based on what I'm seeing, I can't tell.
We can't tell.
We can't tell.
Trying to tell us.
Can I see
Right,
that
right.
picture?
I don't
And
see
I
the
don't,
parking on there.
Yeah.
Right, I don't have a drawing to show.
I really don't know where you're talking about there, and it just,
It's gonna build to about here.
And at this point, I mean, once again, that's an item that's definitely missing
So
from,
it's gonna be about right
from the
here.
plans.
They're gonna go to about right there. Maybe over here, actually, about here.
38, this area from here to here.
Okay, and if some of that is public benefit,
No.
it can't be taken up by, so where's the public benefit on there?
Right here.
no, in
There's
the
no
woods.
parking in front here now
In the
anymore.
woods.
These are just flat
Well,
flats.
they're going
Retaining all
to
of
the
those.
woods.
Wooded
Yeah.
area. If you look at that area view, you'll see the wooded area.
And technically, really, it's only 2 lots, because 2 are underwater, correct?
Well,
But still, I
no
mean,
value,
but,
yes.
right,
Yeah, sure,
usage,
we don't have
physical
to-
usage.
We can't hear.
Yeah, that's right, we can't, because you're not in front of the microphone, we can't hear. Okay, all right, so that would have to be included on the plan.
I think it is
Well-
on our plan.
I mean, I'd like to say for the record right now that the photograph we have has, winter storage of boats there.
Right,
So
right.
I can't see where you're if you're gonna continue to use those as,
And additionally, the state of the current seawall, obviously that'll need to be,
Several options.
okay.
One, move the seawall. More likely, these foundations will be done with pilings, and they could be cantilevered on the pilings
So you're
So
talking
it's
about moving the seawall out to,
to the property line,
Oh,
or just enough to where they would be used. That's one possibility. The other is just to, when we install the pilings, they would be the foundations to cantilever that corner out. That's all.
cantilever the unit.
Pardon? Yes.
Cantilever the
yes,
unit
yes.
out.
Mr. Pepe, have you given any thought to, you have 3 cut-ins to get into the units? And I guess my concern would be, like, Unit 2, Unit 5, Unit 8 and 9, those units would have an opportunity to back out on the South River Road because their garages are right in front of those curb cuts. I guess my question would be, have you given any thought to maintain a solid curb along the entire face of the area, all 10 units, and put an exit over on the east side, which would then force people not to back out into South River Road?
Mr. Tamanello, that was the first proposal that we brought to the road commission. They said, no way, you can't create another road on our easement. They definitely said there is no way you can do that. This is what they designed and approved. We went through all that exercise. We started way back in August and had several meetings.
Yeah, and to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense, because you see what I'm talking about. If those people, you know, so that is tight, and I'm tired of making that tight turn, I'm just gonna back out on the South River Road when there's no, you know, and that could occur, right?
It could occur, but practically, people who are gonna live there are gonna be concerned with their own safety, and they're given enough area to back themselves out and drive out. If you have your choices, you would drive out, you would not back out.
Oh, absolutely.
No,
And that's the reason why the road commission said, we will allow you to put in 3 openings, and we will let you put in the turnarounds in it. I mean, basically, their engineer designed this, not my architect or anybody else. We had them design it because they wanted to see if we could make it work. But they would not allow a road in that right-of-way area. That was our first proposal that we brought in, not knowing that they would not allow that.
Okay.
One of the big issues that Member Tominello brought up earlier was the additional wells behind the condominiums. That's, parking-wise, one of the biggest concerns that I had that I never really addressed up until you had mentioned it. When I drove by, looked at the property today, I was a little bit concerned with the parking issue as it was, and I'm just kind of concerned with where those additional 13 wells are going to park. I guess maybe I'm not grasping the layout of the proposed project. Well, maybe you can explain it a little bit better. That just seems like it's gonna be a lot more cars to be parked on that property. My concern is that's a difficult road to navigate as it is, and I'd hate to see people parking up and down the shoulder of South River Road or creating any more of a traffic problem than you have in the summertime as it is right now. And anyhow.
There'd be less impact on the parking with these homes than there is right now. All of that area, they can back out into South River Road because there's nothing to stop them. And I kept my boat was the last slip going towards the lake, the east end slip. And I can tell you, 2/3 of the time, people were backing out onto South River Road because it's wide open.
Sure.
What we're doing is basically stopping that.
Which I can respect that. I can understand exactly what you're saying. I just don't understand where the additional cars are gonna park at. Maybe somebody can help me with that.
Well, if
I
you
think
have,
that's-
first of all, when you have 10 homes,
Right.
all 10 homes aren't gonna have guests coming at the same time.
So the
just
10
like-
homes aren't taking up any additional parking, they're not taking up any of the parking.
Right.
That's what you're telling me. So the houses that are being built are not impacting the parking that's there right now? You're saying you're still gonna have the same amount of parking?
That's
that
right.
you have right now with 10
Not the
homes?
same amount of parking, no, not the same amount of parking. You can't take away the distance for the homes and say
Right.
that's the same amount of parking. I'm saying that this commission, this board here,
Sure.
should, in their own mind, say, all those parking spaces that are still available are not used 100% of the time. I mean, if you take Christmas time, that's a possibility, but that could be 1 or 2 days a year. And, you know, but I've never seen all the parking spaces being used when they were all filled up with boat slips. Even on the best day of the year, 4th of July weekend, maybe half of the boats are there. So, yes, it may be possible, some days it may be tough.
Right.
But for the overall period of time, I'm asking this commission to say, this is the area that we want you to consider as what we have available to us. To make the project work, we have to have a little give and take. And I'm asking, the give is the fact that we do have parking available. It's just being shared, whether it's a boat owner sharing it or a homeowner sharing it. If you have someone coming over, open the garage, they can drive in the garage. they got an empty space. I mean, there's different ways of doing it.
Yeah.
The demand to live on the river is extremely good. And I trying to develop a piece of property that is, in my concern, not gonna go anywhere.
I have no issues with trying to develop a piece of property. I
Right.
think it's a blight right now. It's not very attractive when you drive by it.
Yeah.
It's just, those are just some of the concerns that I could just see just by driving by and just looking at the project the way it is. Parking is my biggest concern.
It's there, but there's not a lot of solutions. And if we never thought we would get beyond the road commission to begin with, we wouldn't even been here tonight.
Right.
But after some hard work and with them coming up with the suggestions that would make it work, still be safety-wise, we feel we now have a project that we can present to the planning commission. Some give and take, I agree, but this is what it's all about.
Well, let's, if we can, just talk about that give and take for a minute.
Sure.
If we could. You're proposing 10 units. That's quite a bit. That's a large, that's pretty large for that piece of property. Are
Well-
you considering, or would you consider anything less?
It's a dead issue.
So 10
It's a
units
dead-
is that's it?
Economically, we're not even sure at this stage of the game. My goal is to bring these in under $200,000, including a boat slip. With the cost of this type of pilings, the road work and everything else, I'm not so sure that this is gonna be a very profitable project. The only thing we'd end up with is the additional boat slips that may end up being my only profit. I mean, it's not known at this stage, but they're not really big units. You're not gonna be selling these for $300,000 or $400,000. They're very modest. And the cost of the infrastructure is the same whether you build a $300,000 home or a $400,000 home, or you build one that's under $200,000. Same infrastructure, there's a lot of costs there. We have to bring the sewers in from across the other side of the road. And they're available. Fortunately, water and electricity are available on the property. The sewers have to be come across. So there are some expensive costs of developing the property.
So you're indicating that you want to market these for under 200,000 with one boat well per unit?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, commissioners? Any other comments or questions or concerns?
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Maybe if we just summarize some of the concerns that were talked about tonight, I can read through my list, and if any of the commissioners have anything to add, we can give those to the applicant, let them go back and see what they can address and what they can't address, and then we could have a motion to
That sounds great.
table. I mean, obviously, that's your prerogative as a
Correct.
commission, but the items that I have listed as concerns were the parking, particularly for designated visitor parking spots. Also, parking with regard to marina spaces as well as for the extra docks. The public benefit of turning over the 4 parcels without any type of improvements on it and having the township maintain and take care of that property, and whether or not that's actually a public benefit. The fourth item, and I'm not sure if it were improved, that would, if the applicant actually developed the park and made that part of the condominium itself, might be something that they could consider as well. The maneuvering room on the site with regard to access to the garage, both ingress and egress. The access to the site in general, which the applicant explained the road commission was satisfied with. Some of the commissioners still expressed some concerns with regard to having the 3 different access points. Providing the whole site on a site plan and specifying each of the uses and how they would be handled, and I think in addition to that, and I think it was brought up, we really ought to see the location of the docks behind the units, how many they're going to be, and their exact locations. And the last one that was brought up was the number of units itself, and whether or not that is something that the applicant would consider in his response. So I think those 7 or 8 items were the primary ones, and hopefully I didn't miss any, but if I did, the commission can enlighten the applicant.
Well, I'd like to add to that the cantilevering of the units over the water for units 1, 2, part of 3, and 10, possibly 10.
9.
Yeah, 9. Yeah, depending on what will take place with putting in a new seawall and filling in to the property line.
But if with the cantilevering of units, and this is maybe not a solution, but it's a potential thing that the applicant can look at as well, because there are a number, even in the master plan, we do talk a little bit about allowing development to extend out into the water in terms of, the units themselves, but with balconies added, there can always be a boardwalk put outside of those balconies as well, which can operate as part of the dock system and provide for a little bit of a safety factor. So I think in its current state, we're absolutely correct. You're out your balcony and then into the water. So not trying to downplay the point, simply that I'm not sure that cantilevering itself would be the end all of the project.
Yeah, but there has to be some kind of access back there.
Right. Right.
Well, and I would add to that list myself, you can't have the winter boat storage there. And if you're gonna try to count any of that as parking.
I'd have another concern. One of the things that the applicant brought forward was, this is a piece of property you can't do anything with, this is gonna improve the looks, improve the neighborhood, but there's gonna be no improvements for a third of the site. So you're gonna have a beautiful, development on a third of the site, and the other third of the site's gonna look just the way it does today.
Not necessarily.
Well, but you said you're not gonna do any improvements there, right? You're not gonna pave it, you're not gonna change the docks, you're just gonna leave it.
Well, you could improve what's there without
Okay,
paving
so,
it.
so
You could
then,
You could put fresh crushed stone in there to make it look. make
okay,
the
so
grass
basically it's
area-
gonna look
you
the
dress it
same.
up. You gotta
So I
dress
guess
it
my
up.
question is improvements to the piece of property as it exists today. What improvements are you going to do to improve that piece of property?
Well, I'm just, so it said to you, re-gravel, fresh gravel for the people to park on, and keep the grass neat and cut. That's part of all the increase you can do there.
I think you should state that on your.
We could do that,
Okay.
yeah, that's not a problem.
Well, we need to see that. I mean, the whole piece of property needs to be on
Yeah.
the
Right.
site
Yeah.
plan application.
Yeah.
So,
Dimensions, lot lines, the whole 9 yards. And there was an indication also for future maintenance of a seawall, of the current seawall or the new seawall. Consideration needs to be made, how are you gonna reach the tiebacks if, without going through a unit, if the units are on top of tiebacks for any new seawall. So that needs to be taken into consideration. And then additionally, if parking was gonna be taking place on one side, for pedestrians, residents to get to the bike path, crossing South River, I know crossing South River there is, it's certainly not safe. Not safe all the time. It took me a while to pull out of there tonight. Granted, it was 4 o'clock, but still, a lot of traffic. So safety is an issue as well. Anyone else?
Your concern about the tiebacks for the seawall, that exists at Riverview Club. It's been there 30 years. All the tiebacks are underneath those 3 stories buildings.
Okay,
It's been there 30 years,
okay,
and it does nothing.
that's
I'm
all.
not sure that you either leave it as it is, or you build it. I don't think you can turn around and have both ways. It's got to be one way or the other.
Okay, commissioners?
Where did we end up with the, the conversation on cantilevers? Is that gonna be expressed to the applicant as a concern? Or did we decide to withdraw that concern?
Well, I think it was brought up as a concern, and, you know, I think the real question becomes, you know, the applicant has an option of taking a look at it, seeing if he can make it a more safe situation, and if not, then the commission will have to judge it on its basis. You know, do each of you determine that it's safe enough as is?
I'll only bring up, and I do understand the concerns of the commissioners, so I'm not arguing against it. My spin on that was, I saw that as a potential solution. I saw it completely different. Though the solution, if done right, I'm sure would satisfy the concerns of the commissioners. Because what draws me to that is the reference here under section 13.1. It's item A1, and I'll read it. It says, the purpose of a PUD is to encourage innovation in land use and variety in design, layout, and type of structure constructed. So, I'm picking on that word because that word tends to be more innovative in a solution. And, I look at a proposal in front of me where the design is pretty conventional, the layout is pretty conventional, everything is pretty conventional, just about putting something on the property to make it work. And for me then, for my concern would be that, though I am in support of doing something on the property, I'd be looking for something that was being more innovative and trying to solve the constraints of the property in order to solve your expectations as the developer, and then certainly mine as a commissioner looking for an innovative solution to solve a narrow piece of property. I can't suggest what the solution is. I'm just saying that what I look at right now is not very innovative, other than just saying, I wanna put 10 units on a piece of property and that's all I want. So I'll just stop there, and you've heard it. I would just still tend to gravitate back towards CPM's letter that does state 8 items, that there's an opinion that these items need to be understood with an amended submission in front of this planning commission. And if some of these you can't satisfy, and if you can't satisfy them in order to make this a good business decision for yourself, then I guess you've decided already. And then if you come in with a solution, then it now puts us in the position to determine if that solution has merit to go to step 2 of the process.
Thank you, Mr. Badger.
And so, Mr. Maher, did, off of the letter, off of your review, are there items added to that list now? Are we up at 10 or 12?
Yeah, you know, I've got a list of 12 based on the additions you've made to the
Okay.
original 7 that I had offered, and,
I thought there were 12.
you know, and again, these are concerns. You know, some of you shared them, some of you didn't comment on them, so they may not be concerns with the entire commission, but the whole concept is the applicant has now heard the concerns. They can go back, take a look at the plan, and see how they feel about trying to bring the plan to something that's gonna satisfy you folks as a community and as a commission.
I do, since that letter has now been submitted to the applicant, Pat, item 4 says, maximum density permitted within a residential PUD shall not exceed 4.5. I don't read that anywhere in the, is that?
Yeah,
Our
I'd have
master
to,
plan says
I'd have
4.
to take a look at that. The whole section anyway is predicated on the fact that the planning commission has the right to waive any of the requirements of the ordinance for the PUD.
Right.
So, But I'm not sure exactly what page or what section I pulled that out of, but I'll be happy to take a look at that.
Would you just confirm, because if
Sure.
if we're gonna give this to the applicant to work to, I wanna make sure that we're giving them something to work to that is consistent.
Sure, and again, I wouldn't hold that as a stopping point, so, I mean, you as a commission can decide you want 20 units per acre, so.
Right, under PUD, we have that option.
We do, but I think Pat's reference is saying this is the minimum requirement still is fair to give the applicant something to work towards. Because the question already that came up is, are you willing, as the applicant, to reduce the density from 10 to something? Well, it's a density issue again. And for me, I would just like to know what is the total acreage, so at least we have a sense for density relative to that benchmark. 'Cause I don't know what the density is on this. I don't know, is it 100 per acre? I don't know.
I don't know what the acreage is, yeah.
Right.
Okay, well, you've heard our concerns, you've heard our questions and our comments. Is there any other information that you would like to express to us before we,
No, I wish I would have gotten this letter prior to this
wish you would have
meeting,
too,
because
yeah.
it was dated December 11th. I'm sorry that it wasn't forwarded to me, because some of these questions could have been already answered. I guess the only thing I can say is that I'd like to hear from the commission if they think they would consider this project and go forward with it, if we can overcome some of the problems. If right now at this stage of the game, you know, we don't have a whole lot of area to put off-street parking other than what's there. If this is a deal breaker, tell me now, and I'll go home and say, thank you, I tried it, and forget about it. But I came here for a preliminary meeting to get either, go ahead and let's work at the south, or go home and forget about it.
well, and I can tell you, based on the conversation tonight, based on the items that are listed in the letter, based on the site information that we have and what we've seen and what we've heard, we don't have enough to determine. We just don't have enough to determine if the project has merit. If we make a motion this evening to table this item for a month or 2 months, or a timeframe that's a reasonable timeframe for you to put together a more substantial site plan, taking into consideration all the items that you heard this evening, all the items that are mentioned in the letter, the additional items that we discussed, we would be in a better position at that time, once we've had a chance to review an updated site plan, to make a better determination. I don't think we can tell you today whether this project has merit. We just don't have enough information at hand.
Okay. The only thing we do is get your list and see if we can make it work. That's all.
Commissioners, any other questions or comments for the applicant? And if none, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion to table case number 17-13-PUD and allow Mr. Maher to resubmit the letter that will contain 11 or 12 items, and we'll make sure that that gets to the applicant. And I would say the motion to table could be for up to 90 days.
Okay.
I'll support that.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Folk, seconded by Mr. Tominello, to table PUD case number 17-13, Hawks Landing, where the applicant will be provided with a new letter with the original 8 items and then the additional items that were and table for up to 90 days. Discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're going to table this item for up to 90 days to allow you an opportunity to provide back a complete site plan, complete preliminary site plan with all the indications. You'll be receiving a new letter with those items listed, and then take into consideration the items that we talked about this evening as well.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks.
McKee.
Madam Chair, just for the record, the density indications are listed in the ordinance under section 13.32 C1B. I didn't intend for you to,
No, that's okay.
go
I
through. I
want to
just
mark
wanted
it.
to
So
make sure
it
that,
is- it
So I've got
is
something to go
assertable in
to.
there.
Right.
yeah, there is a,
Very well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Miller. Okay. The next thing on our agenda, public hearings, none, no unfinished business, no new business. We'll reflect that Mr. Bloom has rejoined. We don't need a motion to re-establish that? Thank you. Comments from the planner?
Madam Chair, I'd just like to thank all of you. I've had a tough year from a business standpoint and a personal standpoint, but I appreciate the patience that all of you have shown me and the township in general, and looking forward to a great new year. So wish all of you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
We extend the same. Comments from the floor? Hearing none. Our next meeting will be January 16th, 2014. I know, 2014. Let me take this minute to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, and so on, to include everyone. Thank you for all your hard work this year.
Madam Chair, I feel
everyone.
bad. I forgot to introduce my
Thank you. Yes,
my new
Jonathan.
employee, Jonathan Palin, who's going to be joining me at more meetings than he cares to go to. But he's fairly new in the field and has moved back to Michigan from Florida, so had a perfect time of the year. So he has been a real asset for the last month and a half that he's been working with me. So
Well, welcome. We appreciate you being here. We look forward to working with you.
So you had to give him a moving allowance and a clothing allowance.
Snow
don't put any
boots.
bad ideas in his head.
Well, thank you, everyone. Okay, as I said, next meeting, January 16th, 2014. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support?
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting ended at 8:15.